I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Everything around me suddenly became blurry, as if the world had collapsed before my eyes. That night, when I overheard my wife's conversation on the phone, her words tore my heart apart. "I miss you so much. I can't wait until we meet again." It wasn't my voice. It was another man's voice. I stood there, a chill running down my spine. I couldn't believe that my wife had betrayed me so cruelly. I had given her my whole heart, done everything for the family, and yet she had let someone else come in and take my love. I couldn't breathe. It felt like a heavy blow to my chest. She had not only betrayed me, but also broken all the trust I had placed in this family. I walked into the office where she was sitting. My heart felt like it was about to burst. "What are you doing?" I roared. She didn't dare look at me. Her eyes were downcast. No explanation. At that moment, I only felt one thing: insult. Not because of betrayal, but because of her indifference, her lack of respect for me. She didn't apologize, didn't explain. She just stood there, not daring to face me. "Why did you do that?" I continued, unable to contain the anger rising in my heart. "What did I do to deserve this betrayal? Can't you see? Everything I did, I sacrificed for this family, and you repay me with lies?" My voice was breaking into pieces, unable to keep calm anymore. I couldn't believe it. Everything I did for this family, all the care, all the love, was being disregarded like that. She just kept silent. Still no explanation. She looked at me, but her eyes no longer held love, but coldness and indifference. At that moment, I realized that I was no longer the man she valued. She no longer saw me as her husband, but just a man to fool, to easily deceive. Betrayal did not come from the act of adultery, but from indifference, from her treating my feelings as something easily discarded. I felt insulted, treated like a fool. I loved her, gave her everything, but she did not think about my feelings. I wondered, what did I do wrong to deserve this treatment? I felt abandoned, as if I were an unimportant person in her eyes. All the years together, all the happy memories, were now just broken pieces that she did not care about. "I cannot live in this lie anymore," I said, my voice hard, no longer weak. "You can't keep doing this. You can't keep lying to me, lying to this family." She looked at me, her eyes a little panicked, but still didn't say anything. This feeling was so uncomfortable. I didn't need any more explanations, didn't need to hear meaningless apologies. I needed justice. I needed the respect I deserved. From now on, I can't continue living in this family. We can't live in lies. "I can't live with someone like you anymore," I said, my hands clenched, the feeling of anger and pain making me unable to keep calm. I had tried so hard to maintain this family, and now she easily tore everything apart, as if it were all meaningless. She lowered her head, still not saying anything, and I realized that no matter how many times I tried to explain, I couldn't change the truth. She had chosen her path, and I couldn't stay here to witness its destruction. I couldn't continue living in silence, couldn't continue living in a family without honesty and love. I turned and walked away. Not a hello, not a goodbye. I didn't want to stay here anymore. I didn't want to see again the home that I once thought was a safe place, a place where love and family were protected. This home now contained only coldness and betrayal. I couldn't continue living like this. With every step I took, I felt like I was escaping the humiliation, escaping the pain she had caused. But at the same time, I also felt a deep emptiness inside. I loved her so much, and now I had to leave a part of my life. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to. When I left, I didn't look back. I knew I couldn't go back to the old path, no matter how much pain, no matter how much regret. She chose her path, and I must choose mine. I will not live in a family without respect and love. I cannot accept lies, betrayal, and I will not let them control my life anymore. The next day, I couldn't stand it anymore. Decided to face her directly. Couldn't continue to live in silence and lies. I didn't want to be the one suffering in the dark, letting everything linger in my mind without clarity. I had tried, had sacrificed a lot for this family, but now I realized that I couldn't live in this betrayal forever. I no longer wanted to avoid, no longer wanted to be silent like the past days. I had to know the truth, had to face her again to understand what she was thinking and why she did that. She was still in the house, as if everything was normal, nothing had changed. But for me, everything was completely different. What I felt at that moment was not only the pain of betrayal, but also anger at the indifference and disrespect she had shown me. I walked into the room and saw her sitting silently, looking out the window, seemingly thinking about something. She didn't seem surprised that I came in, but her eyes didn't dare to look straight at me. Her silence made me unable to control myself anymore. I took a deep breath and walked closer, my hands clenched, trying to control the anger rising in my heart. "Why did you do that? Why did you betray me?" I asked, my voice no longer patient. She turned to look at me, her eyes red, probably from crying all night, but there was no regret on her face, only confusion, as if she didn't know what to say. "What did I do wrong to make you do that?" I continued, my voice becoming more and more tense. "I've always tried my best for this family. I've done everything to protect you, to protect the children, and yet you do this to me. Do you know how terrible this feeling is?" She was silent, not saying anything, her eyes still not daring to look at me. I felt the coldness from her, not remorse or regret, but indifference, a lack of responsibility. "Do you know how much I loved you? I gave you my whole heart, and now you do this?" The anger inside me kept rising, as if I couldn't control myself. I was no longer the man she loved, no longer the person she cherished. I was only a shadow of myself, someone who had been betrayed, hurt too much. She looked at me, her eyes still full of fatigue, as if she had no strength left to defend herself. "I know you betrayed me, you lied to me, but I want you to reconsider everything, to understand that you not only betrayed me but also broke up this family." I said, my voice becoming colder. She still didn't answer, just lowered her head, as if my words couldn't reach her. Her silence made me feel even more indignant. I couldn't accept that she couldn't say a word of apology, couldn't realize that she had hurt me, hurt this family. "Do you understand? We built this family together. How many difficulties, how many challenges we've overcome, and yet you did this." I couldn't hold back anymore. The questions kept pouring into my head. Why could she do this? Why could she so easily betray everything we've built? She didn't answer, but I could see her face, full of confusion and perhaps regret. But I didn't want to hear any more regrets. I couldn't continue living in this lie. "I don't need to hear your apologies. I don't need to hear any reasons. I just want you to understand that you ruined everything. You broke what I tried so hard to maintain." I stood up, not wanting to look at her anymore, not wanting to hear another word. She was silent, didn't try to hold me back, didn't say anything more. I walked out of the room, feeling like I did the right thing, but at the same time feeling a void in my heart. I couldn't imagine what my life would be like after all of this. This relationship would never be the same again. She was no longer my wife, and I couldn't accept a family without respect, without honesty. The pain and resentment still lingered in my heart, but I know this is the right decision. My life cannot continue like this, cannot live in lies, in indifference. We cannot continue, and I cannot live in a relationship like this anymore. I returned to the living room, the anger still lingering. Everything around me was just emptiness, like an invisible void. I couldn't understand why she could do that to me, to our family. Everything was perfect. We had built a home, but now everything had collapsed because of a wrong decision, an act of betrayal that I could not forgive. I felt like I was living in a bad dream, where every question, every interrogation had no answer. How I loved her, how I devoted my whole life to this family, and now she easily let another man come in and break it all. pain, anger, and the feeling of being offended mixed together, tearing my heart apart. I tried my best, did everything to protect her, to protect the family, but she didn't appreciate all those sacrifices. The feeling of being lied to was like an open wound that could not be healed. It kept eroding my mind. She remained silent, saying nothing, her eyes filled with fear and helplessness. But I didn't need that fear anymore. Nothing could soothe me anymore. Every moment she remained silent, I felt like I was being insulted again. I was so tired of her insincerity, of her deception without any remorse. Don't you feel guilty? Don't you feel pain when you hurt the person you love the most? I asked her, my voice hoarse with tension. She still didn't say anything, still didn't dare to face me. Her silence was an admission of guilt, but it was an admission that I didn't want. I needed her to explain, needed her to face what she had done, but all I got was a terrifying silence. She not only betrayed me, but also betrayed everything we had built, all the trust I had placed in her. I looked at her, looked at the wife I once loved, but now I only saw a stranger. I no longer recognized that woman. Everything she had done was inexcusable, inexplicable. The feeling of being deceived, of being abandoned, it kept rising in me, making me unable to bear it any longer. What did I do wrong to deserve this betrayal? All the sacrifices I had made, all the efforts I had made, in the end I only received coldness, indifference from you. I could not contain the anger in my heart. She looked at me, her eyes still not daring to look at me. But her silence made me even angrier. I could not continue to live in a family full of lies like this. I can't live in a marriage where my wife easily betrays me, abandons everything I've done. I've given her everything, but she doesn't appreciate it. I have nothing left to lose. Do you understand? You've ruined everything. You've broken everything we've built. All the memories, all the beautiful things between us are now just lies. I can't continue living in a family like this. I feel like every word I say is a knife cutting into my heart. But I can't stop. I have to say it all. I have to release all the resentment that's rising inside me. She still doesn't answer, still silent. Only her shoulders tremble slightly. But that trembling doesn't soften my heart. It only makes me feel more hurt. Why can't she say anything? Why can't she face what she's done? At this moment, I felt the coldness from her, not remorse or regret, but indifference. The disrespect she had for me. She was no longer the person I used to love, no longer the person I had put all my trust in. I turned away, not wanting to look at her anymore. I didn't want to hear any more apologies, because I knew those words meant nothing. I couldn't continue living in this betrayal, couldn't continue living in lies. I couldn't live in a family where everything was cold and hurt. She still stood there, saying nothing, just silently watching me. I had nothing more to say to her. I had made up my mind. No words could change the truth. Nothing could ease the pain inside me now. Everything was over. This feeling of being offended, a feeling I never thought I would have to experience. It couldn't fade away immediately. But I know I can't continue standing here, can't continue living in this pain. She has chosen her path, and I must choose mine too. This family, this relationship is no longer mine. And now I must move on. After the confrontation with her, everything seemed to calm down, but the pain and anger were still there. The feeling of betrayal lingered in my mind, like a wound that could not be healed. I could not go back, could not continue living in this family. The happy memories, the days we built together, now became meaningless pieces. Unable to live in a lie, I decided to take action. She betrayed me, broke everything that I had sacrificed my whole life to preserve. Now, I will not let this injustice continue. I must stand up to protect my rights, to protect what I deserve. I cannot let myself become a victim in this story. I cannot let her continue walking without paying for what she did. I have no more room for weakness or forgiveness. The decision has been made. I must start this fight, not just because of the betrayal, but because of my self-respect. The next day, I went to see a lawyer. It was not an easy decision. I did not want to break up this family, but I could not continue to live a lie. The lawyer looked at me with sympathy, but not pity. He knew I was facing a difficult battle, but he also knew what I needed to do. I told him everything, leaving out every detail. I wanted everything to be clear. I needed to understand that I had the right to get what I deserved. You will need to prepare yourself for a long fight. If you decide to divorce, there will be many things to resolve: property, custody, and other things. We will not be able to resolve them quickly, the lawyer said, his eyes serious, not at all easygoing. I nodded, not surprised. I had been preparing for this for a long time. Every step I took, no matter how painful, was necessary. It was the only way I could get out of this situation. I couldn't bear this betrayal any longer. When I got home, I didn't say anything to her. I didn't want to explain or hear meaningless apologies. I needed space to think, to prepare for what was to come. With each passing day, I felt stronger. The feeling of anger no longer haunted me, replaced by a strong determination. I would no longer allow her or anyone to deceive me again. This life is not for the weak, and I couldn't let myself become one. A week later, I filed for divorce. The lawyer had prepared everything, and I knew it was an inevitable step. The feeling when I signed those divorce papers was not relief or happiness, but a determination, an end to everything. It was my way of choosing not to be caught up in the lie, not to live in the shadow of betrayal anymore. I didn't look back as I left the courthouse. It was over. I felt no regrets, only that I had done the right thing. I could finally respect myself. In the following days, my life gradually returned to peace. I no longer had to worry about what she might do next, no longer had to live in anxiety and fear. Everything was resolved, and I could begin to look forward. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wouldn't go back to the old path. Not because I didn't love her anymore, but because I loved myself more, and I couldn't continue living in a family without love and respect. The difficult days were over, and now I could start again. I had the right to live a better life, a life without lies, without betrayal. I decided to stand up, to demand justice, and I would never let anyone take away my right to live again. The price she had to pay for this betrayal was not small, but I do not regret my decision. This life is mine, and I will live it worthily. After everything was decided, I couldn't stop thinking about the injustice I had suffered all this time. I had devoted all my heart and strength to building a family, to creating a safe and loving place for her, for the children. But now, all I received in return was betrayal and hurt. What hurt me the most was her indifference. Not only did she deceive me, but she also never once recognized the sacrifices I had made. She not only betrayed me, but also betrayed the family we had built together. With each passing day, I felt this injustice more clearly. I had worked tirelessly to raise a family, to create a good life. But she easily gave it all up because of her weakness and lack of determination. I started to look back at the years. All that I had done for this family, the times I had put them first, the late nights I had worked to make things happen. I had asked for nothing more than respect and loyalty. But now I realized that it was never enough for her. She did not appreciate what I had done, and I felt like I was invisible to her. The injustice I had suffered was not only due to her cheating, but also due to her disrespect and lack of understanding of the sacrifices I had made. She had lied to me not once, but multiple times. Every time I trusted and forgave her, she had let me down again. I could no longer live in a family where love and trust were so disregarded. Not only did it hurt, but it made me feel like a fool for continuing to endure this injustice. I didn't realize that I had lost myself in this relationship. I tried so hard to keep the family, to protect her and the children. But in the end, I only received betrayal. This injustice was not only a pain in my heart, but also a feeling of being deprived of my right to live happily. I began to think more about what I had overlooked all this time. I had overlooked her too many times. I had compromised too much to keep this family. But the truth was that she did not deserve those sacrifices. At this point, I realized that if I did not stand up, I would always be the one suffering and would never get justice. I could not let this injustice continue to dominate my life. I was so tired of living in a family where everything was a lie. I decided to point out this injustice not only to her, but also to myself. If I didn't ask for justice, if I didn't dare to stand up and protect what I deserved, I would always be the victim in this story. I couldn't let myself continue to be violated, couldn't let myself continue to endure a family that no longer had respect and love. I had to face this truth, and I had to do something to stop being deceived. That day, I decided not to stay silent anymore. I called her back and asked her to face the truth. Do you understand? You not only hurt me, but also this family. You betrayed everything we had built. You made everything meaningless. She looked at me, her eyes tired and full of regret. But I knew, no matter how regretful, it was too late. I couldn't continue to live in this lie. I was too tired, and I couldn't continue to be the husband that she could hurt anymore. She looked at me silently, and I knew that whether she wanted to change or not, she could do nothing. All explanations, all reasons were meaningless. I didn't need her to apologize, didn't need her to justify her actions. I had enough. She was no longer the wife I loved, no longer the person I could trust. I couldn't live in this injustice. I had to regain my power, to rebuild my life, even though everything was lost. After this confrontation, I had nothing more to say to her. I wouldn't go back to the old path, wouldn't live in a relationship where after the divorce decision was made, I began the legal battle. I could not let her escape the consequences of her betrayal so easily. Although I had prepared myself for a long battle, when faced with reality, I still could not help but feel tired. The feeling of exhaustion from having to fight what should not have been me, a man who had sacrificed his whole life for his family, to face. With each passing day, I felt more and more the tension and heaviness of this battle. First were the meetings with the lawyer, the feeling of sitting in the room, facing the legal documents, feeling like I was being caught in a whirlwind that could not be escaped. But I could not give up. I had to fight not only for myself, but also for justice. My wife, after knowing that I had decided to divorce, began to become tougher, not giving up easily. She did not want to lose everything, but she could not change what she had done. In the first weeks, I didn't hear any explanation from her. Every time we met, she was silent or tried to justify her actions. But I didn't want to hear anymore, didn't want insincere apologies. I just wanted her to face her actions. In a preliminary hearing, she asked for custody of the children, and I knew it would be an uphill battle. She said that I was not capable of taking care of the children, that I was too busy with work and couldn't spend time with them. I felt like I was being insulted again. She was my wife, the one who witnessed how many nights I stayed up late, how many times I put my family first. And now she was using those reasons to get custody of the children. I couldn't let this happen. I looked for evidence, documents that could prove that I had always taken care of the children, that I had always put them first. A week later, I received notice from my lawyer that she had started trying to recruit old friends to testify against me. I felt like a tidal wave was coming. But I couldn't lose. I couldn't let her ruin my life. And I couldn't let her get custody of my children that she didn't deserve. The next few court sessions were intense. Not only did I have to deal with her, but I also had to fight the people she had recruited to hurt me. They talked about my mistakes, about the times I might not have spent enough time with my children. But I knew I wasn't the only one at fault. Those days I felt extremely tired, waking up every morning to face legal arguments. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't let things go by without doing anything. I had to fight to protect my rights and my family's. One time when I went to court, I met her at the door. She looked at me with sad eyes. but I couldn't feel sorry for her anymore. What she had done was too serious, and I couldn't turn back. "Do you really want to do this?" she asked me, her voice trembling. I looked at her, feeling nothing but determination. "I didn't want this, but you forced me to do it," I said, unable to hide my indignation. She was silent, saying nothing more. But I knew she also understood that I couldn't continue living in a marriage like this. The next trial was more intense than ever. I had prepared carefully, presenting all the evidence to prove that I was the one who could take better care of the children. I didn't simply want to win, but I wanted to show her that her betrayal would come at a price. Finally, after a long struggle, I won custody of the children. The feeling of victory didn't bring me joy, but only relief. I no longer have to worry about losing my child, about the family being completely broken. But I know that this is not the end. She will still be the mother of my child, and no matter what, I still have to face the remaining difficulties. But I also know that I did the right thing. I fought not only for my rights, but also for my children, for what I deserved. Everything may not be perfect, but at least I have won justice for myself. The legal battle is over, but in my heart there are still many things that have not been resolved. But I have gone through a difficult journey, and I know that no matter how many challenges lie ahead, I will never let myself fall. My life will no longer be about enduring and waiting, but about standing up, reaching out, and starting over. After the court made the decision on child custody, she didn't say anything, just stood there silently, but I could see the disappointment and fear in her eyes. Even though I couldn't see her feelings directly, I knew that things were now beyond repair. During the entire litigation process, she had lied not only to me, but also to everyone around her, trying to create an image of herself as a victim. But all those excuses couldn't hide the truth. When I looked at her, I didn't feel hatred, but only coldness, a feeling of emptiness. She had lost everything, not only my trust, but also her own trust. She had to face accusations not only from me, but also from her old friends, whom she had dragged into this war. Whether she wanted it or not, she had to take responsibility for her actions. After the decision was made, she began to realize that she could no longer live in the shell she had built. Our subsequent meetings were filled with unanswered questions. She asked me if I could forgive her, if we could go back to being friends, but I knew it was too late. She had chosen her path, and I could not follow. My life now had to go in a different direction, a direction without lies or betrayal. When I looked at her, I saw a woman who had lost herself. While I was determined to stand up and fight for what I deserved, she was still lost, still trying to explain her actions without understanding that it was all too late. She even tried to approach me, trying to make up, but I could not go back. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the pain I had suffered. I couldn't continue living in that pain, couldn't continue living in a relationship where betrayal was always present. I tried my best, did everything for her, for this family. But now I realized that I couldn't bear it anymore. I didn't want her to come back to continue repeating the same mistakes. One evening, she came to my house to talk to me. Her eyes no longer had the same confidence as before, but instead were weakness and loss. "I was wrong, I know, but I can't live without you and the children," she said. Her voice choked, as if begging for forgiveness. But I was too tired of empty promises, too tired of insincere apologies. I couldn't continue living with that lie, couldn't continue living in a relationship where I was the only one sacrificing. "I have nothing more to say to you. Everything is over. You have to face what you have done," I replied, my voice cold, without any emotion. She stood there, saying nothing, just bowing her head. After a long while, she turned away, without a word of goodbye. I don't know how she felt, but I knew that I no longer felt anything. That feeling, the betrayal, was enough for me to not be able to go back. In the following days, I no longer had to face her. She started to avoid me, no longer trying to approach or text. The price she had to pay was not only the loss of her family, but also the loss of the most important things in life. She lost my respect, my loyalty, and that of my children. She realized that breaking up a family could not be easily restored, and I, after all that had happened, had stepped out of the shadow of betrayal. My life has now started again, without her, without the old wounds. I have rebuilt my life. It was not easy, but at least I no longer have to live a lie. The price she paid for this betrayal was too high, but I feel no regret, because I did the right thing. After the trial ended and I won custody of my children, the feeling of victory did not bring the satisfaction I thought it would. Instead, I only felt a strange sense of relief. My life, after so many years of pain and betrayal, could finally start again. But I knew this was not the end, but just a new beginning, a journey that I had to continue alone. The first days after the trial were days when I had to face loneliness. Even though I had won custody of my children, there were still nights when I lay awake, wondering if all my decisions were right. My children, now, would no longer have her by their side every day. I knew they would feel deprived, but I also knew that I would try my best to make up for what was lost. In the evening, my children and I sat together, ate dinner, and shared simple stories filled with laughter. I tried to let them feel the love I could give them, so that they would not feel the absence of affection. Although my heart still had pain that could not be healed, I knew I had to be strong to set an example for my children. In the following days, I began to change my life. I was no longer the man who suffered from betrayal. I had found myself again, found my self-respect and resilience. I started to return to work, the projects that I had previously put aside because of family concerns. I met old friends, people I had forgotten during the time I lived in the shadow of my failed marriage. One day, while on a business trip, I met an old friend, someone I had not seen for a long time. She looked at me with a look of surprise, but also full of sympathy. "You have changed so much. You look really strong now," she said, a gentle smile on her lips. I just smiled, feeling relieved and peaceful when I heard these words. Although I no longer feel the pain as before, I cannot forget what happened. My life has now taken new steps, but it is not easy. She, my ex-wife, is still a part of the past, and I cannot keep going back to hold on to sad memories. A week later, I decided to take a trip with my children. It was the first time we went together after everything happened. I wanted them to understand that no matter how difficult, no matter how much loss, I will always be by their side. The feeling of them being happy when they laugh and talk makes me feel like I can start everything all over again. As each day passes, I gradually restore my life. People around me also look at me with different eyes. They see that I have overcome the most difficult period, and now I can stand up again. I am no longer a hurt man, no longer a man living in betrayal. A month later, I returned to work with a new spirit. I found the passion in my work that I had forgotten. I worked hard, and as a result I was promoted. But the important thing was not the position, but that I had found faith in myself again. I felt proud of myself, of what I had overcome, and most of all, I knew that I could continue on the road ahead without having to rely on anyone. Since she left, I realized that I could be stronger than I thought. I no longer looked back with tears, but looked forward with a strong heart. The painful days were over, and now I could see the light ahead. One day, when I was teaching my son how to drive, he said, "Dad, I see you are strong." I looked at him, feeling warm inside. I had done it. I had overcome the pain. I had risen from my own failures and sufferings. No matter how many challenges life throws at me, I know I will never fall again. In the months that followed, things began to stabilize. My children and I began to find balance in our lives. We no longer needed her to feel complete. I taught my children about strength, resilience, and how to get up after every failure. I also taught myself the most important lesson. Nothing is more precious than loving and respecting yourself. I no longer fear the past, no longer let betrayal control me. This life is mine, and I will live it exactly the way I want. After the legal battles were over, my life and my children's lives gradually returned to normal, but there was still much to be done to mend the broken relationship. My son, who had witnessed the turmoil in the family, now became quieter. He was no longer the cheerful, lively child he used to be, but became quiet and seemed to avoid any conversation about his mother. I understood that everything had happened too quickly, too suddenly for my children, and I had to do something to restore peace in their lives. One evening, while sitting with my son on the terrace, I noticed that he was silently looking outside, not seeming happy, although the stars were shining brightly in the sky. "Do you still miss your mother?" I asked, my voice gentle, not wanting to force him to answer, but I wanted to know what he thought. He did not answer right away, but looked at me for a while, then finally just nodded slightly. "I know you're sad because Mom is no longer here, but Dad will always be with you. Mom may not be here anymore, but you and Dad will always be family." My son didn't say anything, just nodded. I know that no matter how much I say, I can't replace the mother in my children's hearts, but I also understand that I have to be a strong support for them. From then on, I paid more attention to my children, trying to do everything to make up for the emotional deprivation they had to endure. Every morning, I wake my children up, do simple things with them like eating breakfast, preparing things, taking them to school. I am no longer a busy man with work, but a father who is present all the time, sharing every little thing in life. My daughter, a 10-year-old girl, always appears stronger than my son. However, I notice that the times she's silent, when I'm not paying attention, are when she feels emotionally deprived. She loved to sit with me, telling me stories about her friends at school, the joys and sorrows of childhood. One afternoon, I sat with my daughter in the living room, watching a movie she loved. "Dad, I want to always be the same family as before, with Mom here," she said with a naive but sincere look in her eyes. "I don't want you to be sad." Her words made me feel choked up, but I knew I couldn't live in the past forever. I looked at her, gently placing my hand on her shoulder. "I know you want that, but I promise I will always be by your side. Even though Mom is no longer here, I will always be your dad." She nodded, then smiled again. I knew that they still needed me, and I couldn't let past mistakes affect their future. In the following months, I spent more time with my children. There were no more evenings spent working or feeling lonely. Every night we ate together, talked, and shared everything that happened during the day. I tried to be the friend and father that my children needed to make up for their lack of affection. One day, I decided to take my children on a trip. This trip was not only to change the atmosphere, but also to let them understand that the family was still full of love. We went to a deserted beach, where there were long sandy beaches and waves lapping at the shore. For the first time in a long time, I saw my children truly happy, laughing together, without worries or sadness in their hearts. My daughter ran and jumped on the beach. My son played with the waves. I sat alone on the shore, watching my children play, my heart filled with emotion. The love I had for my children helped me overcome everything. During the trip, I began to look back at myself. I could not change the past, but I could renew the future. My children needed me, and I needed them. I had to become a strong man, a strong father, to not only teach them about strength, but also help them find joy in life, despite all the difficulties. When the trip ended, I realized that although life cannot be perfect, as long as there is love, the family will always be strong. I no longer felt the lack of my ex-wife. The relationship between me and my children became closer, and I knew that family love would be the foundation for us to move forward, even without my mother. In the following days, I continued to build relationships with my children with sincerity and patience. I taught my children how to face difficulties, taught them that no matter how life changes, as long as we keep our love, we will overcome everything. My life has turned a new page, and I know that no matter how difficult the road ahead is, I will always be the father and companion of my children, so that they can feel the love and peace in the family. As time passed, things settled down, and I realized that life can go on even through deep wounds. The months of betrayal, pain, and hardship could not break me. I had won myself and found peace in my soul. My children, although they may not have fully understood what had happened, felt the love and resilience I had for them. I began to spend more time with them, not just as a father, but also as a friend and a mentor to them growing up. One afternoon, while my son and I were playing soccer in the yard, he looked at me with eyes full of respect and said, "Dad, I see you are stronger than you think." I stopped, looked into his eyes, and in that moment I realized that although everything was painful, I had done the right thing. I have taught my children an important lesson about resilience, about how to face challenges and stand up after each fall. In the past, when I was still living in the darkness of betrayal and pain, I could not believe that I could find peace again. But now, I see clearly that every challenge in life has its reason, and it has helped me grow. I am no longer a weak man, drowning in tears or guilt. I have stood up, found strength from myself. Like my son, my daughter has gradually opened her heart, no longer afraid or worried about the changes in life. She has returned to herself, happy, innocent as before, and I understand that this is the greatest reward I can give her. We have overcome the storm together, and now, together, we are building a new family, a family without lies, without pain. The relationship between me and my children became closer and closer. I felt joy in every moment with my children, in family meals, in the evenings together talking, sharing dreams and worries. At those times, I realized that no matter how life changes, as long as there is love, everything will be fine. One morning, when I was walking with my children in the park, I suddenly received a call from an old friend. He asked me if I wanted to participate in a new project, a job that I had loved for a long time but had never dared to think of. At that moment, I realized an important thing. Life does not end when you face failure or pain, but when you find your strength again. I accepted the project, and that was a big turning point in my career. From then on, I not only focused on my family, but also developed myself in a way I had never thought of. It was a new life, full of hope and confidence. I looked back on my journey, from a man who was betrayed, hurt, and disappointed, to a resilient man who dared to stand up and rebuild his life. I learned that no matter how many difficulties there are, as long as we do not give up, as long as we are resilient and dare to face the truth, life will open up new opportunities. I understand that every challenge in life has its reasons, and it is a lesson to help us grow and become stronger. Finally, I realized that no matter how much loss, no matter how much pain, life always gives us the opportunity to start over. And if you are in the same situation as me, do not be afraid. Do not feel that you cannot overcome. Stand up, move on, and you will see that life always has new turns. Even if you lose important things, you can still find yourself again and build a new life. The price you pay may be high, but in the end, resilience and courage will bring you greater good.